Hola a todos, hoy te invito a que vayas por una taza de café o una taza de té para que compartamos juntos esta entrevista. Yo soy Dani Mora, quien te ha venido acompañando en este proyecto y hoy vamos a estar conversando alrededor del trabajo basado en la teoría de campo en la práctica clínica. Para esto nos va a estar acompañando desde República Checa un terapeuta muy conocido para la Gestalt contemporánea. Él es Jan Roubal. Jan Roubal es profesor adjunto de psicoterapia en la Universidad de República Checa, donde también participa en los trabajos del Centro de Investigación en Psicoterapia. Trabaja como psicoterapeuta y psiquiatra. Fundó y dirige la formación en Integración Psicoterapéutica y la formación Gestalt Studia en la República Checa. También trabaja como formador y supervisor de psicoterapia a nivel internacional. Preside el Comité de Investigación de la Asociación Europea de Terapia Gestalt y es coeditor de los libros La publicación checa, Psicoterapia actual, y la publicación internacional de Terapia Gestalt en la práctica clínica, de la psicopatología a la estética del contacto. Entonces, vamos juntos a reflexionar sobre el trabajo basado en la teoría de campo y, como siempre, disfruten de este encuentro. Bueno, estoy total y profundamente emocionado por este encuentro. Tengo un año esperando esta entrevista y estoy seguro va a ser de mucho beneficio para mí, por supuesto para todos los oyentes. Un gusto tenerlo por acá, doctor Jan Roubal. Y bueno, ¿cómo se encuentra la mañana de hoy?
So we are very happy to have you here. It's been a year that we're waiting for this conversation. So we know that it's going to be very helpful for everyone. So how are you today?
Well, yeah, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. I was also looking forward to this interview, which is kind of an adventure. I don't know what will happen. Let's see.
Sí, sí, qué bueno, qué rico que así sea. Bueno, entonces la temática que hoy nos convoca está relacionada con el trabajo basado en la teoría de campo en la práctica clínica. Entonces, comencemos con las preguntas. En este caso, la primera que tengo para usted es, ¿cómo encontró su camino personal hacia la teoría de campo?
I'll give you a little bit longer answer. I hope you don't mind that. I started my career as a psychiatrist. So I studied psychopathology of the clients. That was my former education, my former approach. And then there were several turbulences, I would say, turbulences of mind when I had to reconstruct my way of understanding the suffering people bring into psychotherapy. So the first kind of a revolution of mind that I experienced was when I was in the Gestalt therapy training, and I met the idea of creative adjustment, meaning that the psychopathology that I see as a disorder, watching it as a psychiatrist, can be seen as the best way for the person to survive in difficult conditions, as a kind of a creative solution of a very difficult situation. So that was the first revolution of mind for me personally. Then there was another one later on in the training when I somehow understood more the dialogical principle that everything that happens in the therapy situation is co-created by both parties, by the therapist and the client. So every psychopathology that is present in the situation here and now, it is co-created by me also. I'm taking part in it because it emerges in my presence. It emerges in the contact of us two. So I must be involved and I must contribute to it. So then it's not, let's say, the depression of the client or the borderline behavior of the client, but it's kind of that we are depressing together in a way, or borderlining together, co-creating the psychopathology. And so that was the second revolution of mind. And then there was the third one that you are asking about, and that's the another very radical change of position towards psychopathology, towards human suffering, and the role of psychotherapy that was framed by the field theory approach for me. And my way to it was quite painful, I must say, because I worked as a psychiatrist and psychotherapist in the psychiatric hospital with quite severe harmed or suffering people with a psychiatric diagnosis, mainly with people with depression and anxiety, and suicidal attempts, and so on. And after spending some years, I think at least 7 years, but there were some years before, I experienced a very painful, deep burnout syndrome. It was really very painful, mainly on a bodily level. I felt like my energy was like drained from me, and that my body was really weak. I felt like 100 years old man, and somehow it was strange because I had a very good life in that time. I had a family with small children. I had friends. I had my hobbies. Everything was fine, but somehow the suffering of the people, as if I got infected by it, as if it got under my skin. Yeah, and I really felt it bodily. And it was really hard. And then, there was a turning point once when I was in the mountains with my wife, as we always go every year into the Alps. But this time I was really tired and I was just walking slowly. She was somewhere ahead. And I remember the moment when I was like standing alone in front of the big valley, and I was so frustrated somehow from what was happening with me professionally, that somehow it shouted from me really loud into the valley, "Fuck, I don't want to help anyone anymore." And that was so true. And that was a turning point for me, because how can I keep this true position and keep working as a psychotherapist? Yeah, how can I work as a psychotherapist without trying to help the other? And that was kind of a creative tension in this that pushed me forward, and in a way pushed me out of the burnout hole. And I started some research at my university about how psychotherapists experience contact with severely disturbed people, like with depressed people. What is happening here and now in the contact, so that the therapist gets somehow infected. Because I found out in the literature there was some research about depression, and that it is contagious, that the contagiousness of depression, that the people who are in the contact with the depressive person, they get depressed in a way themselves. But it was not researched in the therapeutic relationship. So I researched this, and maybe I'll talk about that a little bit more in details later. But what I discovered, that the discovery that was like revolutionary for me, was that there is some kind of a power of the depression, kind of a it's similar like to a gravitation power that pulls you down. And the depression has this kind of a power to pull down both the client and the therapist. And you probably know it, that when you sit in a depressive field, you feel tiredness, your body is heavy, yeah? And there's this power pulling you down. And that was something really new for me, to think about psychopathology as not something belonging to the client or something co-created by both of us, but as something which is like present in the situation but does not belong to anyone. The depression is there with us and it somehow pulls us down. There is a power of it. Yeah. So that was one part of the one side of the coin. The other side of the coin was that when facing this dilemma, I didn't want to help anyone anymore, and I want to stay, keep working as a psychotherapist, keeping this tension, kind of a koan. I slowly came to a realization that actually it's not me who is helping. So I can stay there without trying to help the other. And still I can be, people can benefit from the psychotherapy, from my work, even if I'm not trying to help them, if I'm not trying to help. And because the help comes in a different way. It's not my intervention that helps. It's more kind of a healing power, which is also present in the situation as a potentiality. And if I somehow learn to use this healing power, I don't have to invest my energy into the healing process. I think it's quite similar, like, for example, the growth of trees or other things in the nature. They just grow. There's this power of growth. And I think this healing power is something similar to that. So that was one big impulse for me. And then I also started to take care of myself after the burnout period, having psychotherapy, using also some antidepressants. And then I also started to work, like, to take care of my spiritual, the spiritual aspect of my life. And I had great experiences with working with altered state of consciousness with the help of some medicines like mushrooms. And there I suddenly somehow could experience what the field theory is about, because I knew about field theory theoretically before, but it was more here. But then being in the altered state of consciousness where self in a way disappears, and I have to trust into the forces that are bigger than I am, I have this bodily experience that, yes, it makes sense. It's the way I want to move on. Yeah, so that was the impulse. Maybe I can say more about that in details, what it meant theoretically, but this was the personal part of it, of the story.
Sí, sumamente importante y valioso que pueda compartir con nosotros, porque creo que a algunos nos ha pasado también, ¿no? Llegar a ese lugar o ese momento de frustración. Ahora, sería algo interesante saber para nosotros, quizás no para profundizar, pero ¿cómo entiende y transita las perspectivas monopersonal, bipersonal y de campo?
Well, this concept of three perspectives is something I tried to describe as a way of let's say classifying or making order in different approaches, different theoretical and also practical theoretical approaches and practical tools in Gestalt therapy. And it seems to me that this idea of three perspectives can help us understand which of the tools are useful for what. Well, the idea is that there is a therapeutic situation, and the phenomena in it, and we can observe the process of change that is happening in therapy from different perspectives, and from different place we see something different. So it doesn't mean that the situation changes. It's still the same situation, but we see different things, different processes from different positions. So, and I think these three perspectives were all present in Gestalt therapy in its history, but some of them were more figural in some time. So probably in the beginning of Gestalt therapy, the monopersonal perspective was more present in the foreground, like focusing on the client and helping the client to become aware of their patterns, and this way become more free in deciding whether to repeat the patterns or try something new. So this was the task of the therapist, and I imagine the therapist was something like a gardener, like supporting the tree to grow itself, but the therapist was not pulling the tree up to grow, but just providing support. So, yeah, this was the monopersonal perspective when we focus on the client. And I think this perspective is still very much present in our work, in our theories, and I think it's very helpful. And maybe it's not enough, yeah? And we are lucky to have other perspectives. The second one is the bipersonal perspective, and it emerged later in Gestalt therapy. It was, as I said, present from the beginning, but it became more figural in, let's say, 80s maybe of the last century, when the dialogical approach became dominant in Gestalt therapy, but also in other approaches. And here, the idea of co-creation was crucial. So we switch our attention from the client. We don't observe the phenomena of the client, but we observe what is happening in between us in the process of co-creation. And here, we also switch the mode of functioning, let's say, because in the monopersonal perspective, the ego function of self is the one which is in the foreground. So what the client is doing, how the client is in contact with the outer surrounding, how the client is functioning, and also what I do as a therapist to raise awareness. So the ego function is in the foreground. In the bipersonal perspective, it is not so much important what I do as a therapist, but it's much more important who do we become for each other with the client. So the personality function is in the foreground now. And the relational experience is the healing power. So here we can use the metaphor of a therapeutic dance, yes, that we dance together and we co-create new steps, because each of us dances the old dance, but because we committed to stay together and to dance together, we find some new creative steps. And this approach is very, very useful in many situations, and sometimes it's also not enough, and we need to use yet another perspective, which is the field theory perspective, where we don't focus on the client, we don't focus on the in-between processes, but in a way we disperse our attention to perceive the whole of the situation. And we don't focus on the figure, but we are more like perceiving, sensing the phenomena on the periphery, the background phenomena. So, and here we are trying to support the restoration of the natural flow of the situation from now to the next, so that the flow of the presence can go on fluently, and we do it the way that is very much connected with ego, with id function. It means with our body being present in the situation and sensing, and our senses as function of the situation. Yes, so we it's not about what we do. It's not also about how we relate to the other, but this approach is much more focused on how we are present as therapists, about the quality of our presence in the situation. And this is quite a radical change in our approach, that we focus more on the work with ourselves than on the work with the client. And I think I'll speak more about that later. Do you think it's enough for the distinction between these three perspectives?
Es suficiente. Muy claro.
Okay.
Ahora bien, volviendo a nuestro tema, ¿qué aporta de nuevo la teoría de campo a la práctica del enfoque de la terapia Gestalt?
Yes, this is a very accurate question after the previous talk. Well, first I want to say that there are more field theories in Gestalt therapy. So the approach that I'm presenting here is the approach that makes sense to me, and that I'm trying to develop together with my many colleagues from the training institutes where I teach. I would like to mention mainly 4 my colleagues who are very much present with me when I talk about field theory, because somehow I cannot distinguish what is mine and what is theirs. We just all the theories they're like developed in collaboration with them. So I'm grateful to these my colleagues. These are Gianni Franceschetti, Michela Cecele, and Stania Dudova. I'm grateful that I could meet them and develop the approach that really makes sense to me. So I'm presenting one of the field theory approaches, and what I think that it brings new to Gestalt therapy is, well, I don't know if it's exactly new, but it's kind of we emphasize it, yeah? And it's first, I think, kind of a humbleness in front of the processes that are bigger than I am as a therapist, and processes that I don't understand because they are much more complex than my mind is able to capture. So kind of a humble position that it is not me who is making the change. I can be there as a support of the healing processes. So that's this kind of a humble position is, I think, needs to be stressed. I don't think it's new, but I want to emphasize it. And then on a practical level, I think that it is what I already mentioned, that when we work from the field theory perspective, the first intervention that we make is directed towards us. We work first with ourselves and then with the client. I will explain what I mean. It's not so, and I mean, it can be quite familiar to you as well. Imagine that you have a client who is really anxious, sitting there in front of you and like barely breathing, tense in his body. And then you sit there with the client, and the first thing that you intuitively do is just that you ground yourself. and you breathe yourself. Yeah. So you, in a way, you get yourself free from this anxiety power, anxious power of this situation. Yeah, we can feel how when the other is so anxious, we also stop breathing. Our body reacts to it, and we got tense too. So we first relax our body. We get some self-support by breathing, grounding ourselves, and then we start to talk with the other. So it's very natural, intuitive process that we just want to emphasize more and make it like more specific to some specific psychopathologies. Yeah, maybe I'll say it a little bit more later, but I think this is the basic principle. First, focus on myself and work with my way of being present, and then I change the position from which I make the intervention. And then the intervention is much more powerful. Yeah, when I speak with the anxious client from a relaxed, grounded position, I don't have to do much. Yeah, I can be just nodding. Yeah. Oof. And that's it. And it works. The other relaxes too. Yeah, because I speak from a grounded, free position. But let's discuss it more later in details.
Perfecto. Ahora, venimos bordeando de alguna manera esta temática, pero me gustaría saber cómo definiría el cambio terapéutico cuando se comprende como un proceso emergente y no como algo dirigido.
Yes. One of the most precious theoretical supports that we have as Gestalt therapists is the paradoxical theory of change. Yeah, this is a wonderful, simple, practical, and yet so challenging concept. But yeah, well, originally, as you all know, it was formulated for personal growth. Yeah, so if I try to be better, I just stay the same because I'm pushing myself somewhere to be someone who I am not. But if I acknowledge who I am, the change, I'm starting to change. Yeah. So that was the original formulation of it. But we later it was applied also to clinical situations and to our work as therapists. So in a way, if I'm trying to help the other to suffer less, if I'm trying to help the other to function more in a more healthy way, in more like to live better life, I am in a way pushing the other in some direction with a good intention, of course, but I am in a way not acknowledging what is, as if I was saying, oh, you are not good enough for me. You should be a bit healthier. Yeah, you should suffer a bit more, less. Sorry. So with a good intention, I'm not fully accepting who the other is in the whole complex situation, and I'm trying to push the whole situation somewhere where I think it would be a bit better. So this way, I'm fixing the psychopathology, and this way I'm fixing the pattern. So what I need to do when like using the paradoxical theory of change as a ground support, I need to acknowledge the situation as it is, and in a way to surrender to what is and what can happen without trying to push it anyway, without trying to improve it, which is really difficult because it requires that I also accept and acknowledge everything that is happening with me. Yeah, that this is, I think this is the true meaning of accepting the other. It in fact means accepting myself in who do I become in the presence of the other. Everything that I experience in the presence of the other. Everything belongs here. Everything is a function of the field. So it needs to be acknowledged. I need to make room for everything that happens, that emerges in me, without trying to push it anywhere. And then the change can emerge as you said, yeah. We can imagine it. Or I use the metaphor of mushroom. Yeah, that there is a mushroom which is like above the ground, visible mushroom, which symbolizes, let's say, the symptoms of the client and also the intervention of the therapist. So the things that can be observed in the process of therapy. And then there is this underground mycelium, the very complex, very tiny, undifferentiated network that is so tiny that we cannot touch it. We cannot discriminate details of it. It's in the darkness. We cannot see it. So it's the ground of the situation. And working from the field theory perspective, I think that we somehow work in this underground mycelium level through our presence. So when I somehow transform my way of being present, there's some kind of a influence of I influence the underground mycelium, and then from the transformed ground, a new figure can emerge. So we don't work with the figure. We are not trying to change what is visible here, but we work, let's say, in the underground. And the main tool we are using is acknowledgement and acceptance of what is, and opening to that. And this supports the healing power, which is bigger than we are, than our intentions. And then the change just happens its own way. Yeah, a new figure emerges then.
Es algo que se escucha tan simple y tan complejo al mismo tiempo. Por eso mi siguiente pregunta es, ¿cómo puede un terapeuta en formación desarrollar sensibilidad para captar las dinámicas del campo?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. The crucial thing, there are two things that come to my mind now. The first thing is to trust our body. So the body is so sensitive to the field processes. So anything that happens to our body, and here I also mean the experiences and emotions that come through our body. So it's not only body as flesh, but I mean the unity of body and emotions. Everything that emerges, every movement of our experience, every shadow of our experience is function of the field. So we can trust it. And also our thoughts, yes? As something comes to my mind, something, I feel something in the presence of the client. And it may look very crazy, very strange, very out of the place, but anyway, it belongs to the situation because it emerges here. So that's the first thing, just to trust what emerges. And the other thing is quite challenging, that I think we need to imagine ourselves as being a highly sensitive sensors of the field processes. So everything that happens with me is an information about the field processes. So I experience it. For example, I experience the fear in the therapeutic situation. So I can be sure the fear is present. It's here because I experience it. It must be here. So this is I take really like seriously everything that comes to me as an experience, and at the same time, I don't take it personally. So the fear, let's say, does not belong to me. It's not my fear. It's a fear that I feel as a sensitive sensor of the field. So I think this is the way we can train our sensitivity. Yeah. And it's not only about what is present, but that's the next part of the field work, that we also somehow sense what is missing, what is absent, what is not here but wants to happen, how the Gestalt wants to close itself, how the process wants to move on, restore the natural ongoing process of presence. So we can sense also this absences, what is missing. And that gives us a very important guideline, and we can talk about that later. Okay.
Claro, y ahora vamos con la pregunta quizás más importante y es, ¿podría darnos algún ejemplo de trabajo clínico desde la perspectiva de la teoría de campo? Sobre todo, ¿cómo acompañar a un paciente cuando el campo se vuelve complejo o desbordante? ¿O cuando el patrón relacional que surge con el terapeuta repite el campo traumático?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah. This is very important to stress that the field theory is not just a theory; it's a very practical tool. So, how we can use this approach? I'll give you two examples. One is more like general, and the other is more specific about working with depression. So the more general one is that you can imagine your client, and you can explore what would you wish for that client? Yes, what the client is missing, and you would really like the client to have to experience. So, for example, I have a client, and when I think of him, I think, well, he's doing fine, but I would wish him to feel more joy in his life. Yes. Otherwise, he's fine, he's doing well, but there's some joy is missing. So this would be my wish for him. So the joy is missing. And now I can experiment with how can I feel joy with this client, being with this client. You see, so I'm not trying to change the client, but I'm trying to invite the missing element into my experience. And through me, it becomes present, becomes present in the situation. And it's really not easy. Yeah, the missing element is like excluded. Yeah, so it needs quite effort or creativity from me to, how can I feel some joy with this gloomy person? Yeah, and then I need to find something in it where I could feel joy with him, and this way I open the door for the absent part of experience, and the joy through me becomes part of the ground of the situation, of the mycelium. So the mycelium is different now, and something will happen, but I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know what it will bring, what kind of a change. That's the beauty of the paradoxical theory of change. Yes, I just accept that this is something. What is the joy is present here as a wish, as a potentiality, And when I open door to it through myself, something will happen and I'll just welcome it again, with curiosity. So that's one example. Of course, I make it it's quite simplified here. Yes, as an example. Of course, it's always much more complex. And the second example is more specific to one kind of a psychopathology that I was dealing with most. It's depression. Very often happens, and this was my research about that therapists, when they sit with the depressed person, they very fast start to feel tired, even exhausted, without creativity, feeling like, oh, I'm not a good enough therapist for this client. This is too serious. I should send this client to a specialist. Yeah. So the therapists are doubting about themselves. They are losing hope. Yeah. So in a way, they are experiencing the symptoms of depression themselves. They got infected, or they they got infected. It's still a relational model, but let's say they are pulled down by the power of depression, by the depressive field organization. So they perceive the symptoms of depression on themselves. And then naturally, it's not pleasant for them. So they try to protect themselves from that, not to feel so bad, not to feel so helpless, so hopeless. And they do it by being active, by trying to help the other, trying to cure the depression. So they make some active interventions. They support the client to do some activities, to go for a walk, let's say, to write a diary when the depression is better and when it's worse, to focus on the things that are still functioning, to refocus on that. So there are many kinds of interventions that the therapist usually do with the depressive client. But what is important here is from which position they do the intervention. And this position is the position of a therapist who is protecting themselves from this helplessness, tiredness, from the influence of depression. So they are trying to help the client, but basically they are helping themselves not to feel so helpless. So that's why they're making their interventions. But it doesn't work. Yeah, the depressive person stays depressive, and they become frustrated. The therapists become frustrated and angry, and they blame the client, that the client is not helping them, or they blame themselves, that they are bad therapists. Anyway, there is this blame, frustration, anger is there in the room. And then very often they leave the client because they send the client to a specialist, or the client leaves. But very often also it happens that they don't leave the client, but they stay, but in a very strange position, because they give up. They give up their attempts to help the client. They give up their attempts to change the depression, to heal the depression, to relieve the client. They just resign and give up. Okay, I cannot help the other. I cannot help the others to suffer less. And yet they stay with the other. So this is a turning point somehow, that the therapist somehow can tolerate their helplessness. They can acknowledge themselves as helpless. And this is the turning point, staying with the other and accept our own helplessness there. I cannot make any change. I cannot help the other, and yet I stay here. And that is a very crucial another very crucial element of the field theory approach work, that we need to give up our expectations. Because if I expect something, especially in the depressive field, it leads to experience of failure. Yeah, I'm expecting that something at least a little bit would get better, yeah, or move that direction, and then I'm disappointed. The client feels also the failure, and the depression gets fixed more. So we need to give up our expectations and sit there without expectations. And at the same time, we need to keep hope and give up expectations, which is in a way pushing the process somewhere, and keep hope, which is not directed anywhere, but the hope is embodied by our presence, by the fact that we keep sitting there with the client. Yes, because if I wouldn't have no hope, I wouldn't be there with the client. If the client would have no hope, also he would not be there. So just the fact that we are sitting there with each other is kind of an embodied hope, even if we feel totally hopeless and helpless. And this is the kind of a miracle, that if we dare to give up our expectations and just acknowledge, accept our helplessness and hopelessness and stay with it, it suddenly there is not only one person who is hopeless and helpless in the room, but there are two hopeless, helpless people in the room. So the client is not alone in this desperate hopelessness. And this is the key moment for working with depression, because the depression is what is so painful is in depression is this hopeless abandonment. Yes, I feel so alone, so abandoned by everyone, and I cannot see any way to get out of this isolation, to reach the other, or that other can reach me. So this solitude, hopeless solitude is, and suddenly the hopelessness is still here, but we are together in it. So one crucial element of the fixed pattern of depression is somehow not present anymore. Yeah, it's not, I mean, we are together in it. And very often there is some kind of a relief of the person. But I must say, yeah, I must stress it again, we must not expect it. If we expect the relief, we are again back in the circle. Yes, so we must not expect anything, just sit there. But what usually happens, or quite often, is that when the person feels that they're not alone in their desperation and helplessness, they start to feel pain. And that is kind of a paradox of our approach, that we are not trying to help people to suffer less. Yeah, we're not trying to help people to not to feel so much pain. On the contrary, we are trying to support people to feel the pain with us, not alone. So then the pain can be processed. Yes, and the clients, they have good reasons for not processing it, for not feeling the pain, because one person is not enough for processing such a big pain. They need another body, they need someone else's support for that. But when they feel it, when they feel that they are not alone, there's someone else with them, they start to feel the pain that was blocked in the fixed pattern of depression. And then very often they start to cry. And that's beautiful, because it's the beginning of the healing process of mourning. The fixed pattern of depression, which was like locked, gets transformed into a wave of depression, where they start to feel the pain and feel really sad, mourning over the dreams that didn't come true or losses from their lives. But this is a healing process, and it's a wave of mourning that goes down, and we can go there with them. And then it closes the Gestalt, and it leaves some space for something new to emerge. Yeah.
Cuánta sensibilidad en esa respuesta. Ahora, ¿cómo nos invitaría a superar el miedo de trabajar desde esta perspectiva?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's a great question. That's a great question. I think that the fear is inevitable. It just belongs to this world. Not only fear, but also kind of a stupidity, I would say. I will explain that. I think that if I would really understand the field theory in its complexity, where everything is present in the current moment and everything is a process, I think if I really understand it completely, I would be psychotic. Yeah. In the psychotic state of mind, I think the field theory is like clear, but my mind is protecting me not to get psychotic by making me stupid. So I don't understand field theory completely. I understand just a little bit what my brain can, what my mind has a capacity for, and the rest is just not understandable for me. So that's how my mind is protecting me. So that's one thing that we can do for ourselves, that when you work from the field theory perspective, you read about it, and when you think, okay, I understand something, but then in the next moment you say, no, I don't understand it. It's just, it can be in a different way. So this is kind of a self-protective activity of our mind, and it's good for us. So that's one thing. The other thing is that you mentioned the fear. I think the fear is very natural because from the field theory perspective, from the very radical point of view, we perceive a situation as process. So everything that is present in the situation is in a flow and is function of the process, including the client and including me. So I am also a process, which is function of the field. And if I think about myself as Jan, as a therapist, as a human being here, these are constructs that support me not to be afraid so much, not to feel so much fear, but of losing shape and being just a process. So it is really fearful to let this go, to let the self as a construct, to let this go and just to be in the flow of the process as a function of the situation. It's impossible, I think, but even if we try a bit, it brings fear. But here, I think I already mentioned my experiences from the altered state of consciousness, but there can be also some other experiences that are close to some spiritual traditions that we perceive ourselves as being, let's say, guided or taken or supported by some bigger force. And there, then I can just give up control over the situation and rely on some bigger power. So I think the field theory, in kind of a very natural way, introduces the spiritual aspect of psychotherapy, kind of a belief which helps us to stay with our fear, I think.
Bueno, me devuelve muchísimo la esperanza en la psicoterapia. Ha sido muy conmovedora esta entrevista, escucharlo. Y bueno, gracias por compartir con nosotros toda su sabiduría.
Yeah, it was a pleasure for me. Thank you, Danny, very much for your invitation and for all your effort that you are investing into these interviews. I think that's a very valuable contribution to the Gestalt therapy community. Thank you for that.
Y por supuesto usted no podía faltar. No podía faltar, por eso lo esperé todo un año.
And of course, your presence in this project was necessary, and that's why we waited for you 1 year, because we were bored the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bueno, un gran saludo desde Colombia y muchísimas gracias por todo lo que nos ha entregado a través de su saber, sus libros y todo lo que ha hecho por y para la Gestalt contemporánea.
Thank you.
Se muy bien, hasta luego.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.